It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show.
Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 533. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Hi.
Thalen.
Hey there.
And Tam.
Hello.
So we've got a couple of topics. Actually, technically, we did not record last week. The last week where we did record, we had a bunch of topics that got bumped. So we have a pretty thick list of topics. So we will start off with what I think are a couple of quick ones. Hellclock is good.
It is good.
So Hellclock is, what if Hades were actually an ARPG?
Like, what does that mean? Like, not
Like-
roguelike?
Is a roguelike, but is way more of a Diablo-like game than Hades is. Hades is way more action game as compared to this is way more adjacent to Path of Exile or something like that.
So Hades is more of an action role-playing game, whereas this is more of an ARPG.
Yes.
What does ARPG stand for?
Can we
Look,
not have this?
Diablo
meeting?
like.
I'm so tired of this discussion,
Okay.
but that's what those terms, like, these terms mean things in that community.
That's fair. I don't quite think I understand the difference. So, because I assumed when you were like, oh, it's more like Diablo, it wouldn't be a roguelike.
Well, the action of the game is more like Diablo,
Okay.
but the systems are more roguelite.
Yes.
So one of the things I associate with like a Diablo game though is like does this have more regen baked into your builds than like a Hades
Yes.
does? Okay.
Or at least it can. There's a certain amount of base regen that you kind of have. You also have health pots. You have, a lot of the trappings of a Diablo style game.
Like that's what I associate with Hades is like if I take a hit, that hit is felt because it's really hard to recover from that hit. Like getting those hit points back is a pain.
Yeah, no, this is to some extent like that does exist, but it's like way less so than I think of as Hades.
Yeah, I would say it's tighter than a regular ARPG. You don't have a ton of regen. You have a finite number of potions, and they don't just drop constantly. They do drop relatively frequently, but so it's a little bit tighter on your health than at least at the outset. But the other mechanic that's going on is the clock. So your runs have a timer, and wherever you are when you hit the timer, you die. And there's obviously like ways in the roguelite systems to increase your timer or to make portals that you can skip levels that you've done before, or other ways to help mitigate the timer, but the timer is a major mechanic. But also, one of the things I really love about the approach of these devs is that they fully recognize that everybody plays games differently and has different preferences. And so if you don't want to play with the clock, you can just get rid of it. And that's fine. It's
Nice.
just an option.
That's awesome.
I appreciate having that option. Like
Yes,
I would probably keep the clock, but I
what's
appreciate
really
being able to turn it off.
What's super interesting is I am playing without the clock because I have a hang up about being timed while doing things. It's back to third grade. It's a thing. But
Entirely reasonable.
But what's cool about it is this game is extremely good at messaging what you should be expecting of the game. Like, one of the little messages it says during the loading screens is like, if bosses are taking too long, you should reevaluate your build. This is not designed to be a grindy game. Another thing is, like, if you're playing with the clock off and you go too far, it's like, hey, by the way, things are about to get way more difficult. You should maybe go back to town and evaluate your gear.
The other thing that really impressed me is I usually don't love having a timer hanging over my head, and I assumed that I was just going to turn the clock off. But I played with it on for a bit just to see what it felt like, and actually, it felt pretty good because at least through the parts that I have played through so far, it's just almost the entire first act. The clock would kill me when I really needed to go back and fix my gear or change my build anyway. And once I got to the point where I was really cooking with my builds, clock didn't matter. I was dying to bosses, not to the clock. It also helps that boss fights, it freezes the clock. So the boss
Okay.
fight can take as long as you want it. It's not supposed to take super long, but if it takes a while, it doesn't matter because any level with a boss is just the clock is stopped, which I also appreciate.
The game also has really good WASD support. Probably plays great with a controller, though I've not tried it with a controller. You can also do like the mouse movement thing or the mouse steering thing. Like, it's got lots of configuration options for how you best want to play this style of game. And like, while you kind of have a fixed ability set, you can mutate those abilities in some pretty wild ways to effectively, quote unquote, build any kind of character that you really want.
Yeah, the abilities get modified by relics that do some really interesting things. And yeah, one of the things I was playing around with for a while, one of the abilities is you just drop a giant bell on your enemies, which is fine. It does a lot of damage. But I found a relic that changed it so that when I dropped the giant bell, it also summoned a ghost, which also attacked the enemies. And so then I was trying to make a build so that I could just spam the bell and have a million ghosts shooting all of the enemies. It was great.
That sounds pretty awesome.
While I have not tried playing with it, there is absolutely a Righteous Fire style ability. If you just want to run around and hit things with a big AoE, it's pretty cool. Like, I definitely recommend giving it a shot if you are interested in both the Diablo-like games and roguelites.
It's also just the story, the lore of this game is sort of fascinating. It's actually loosely based on some real world events, and it is all like even more explicitly Catholic imagery than like most games in this genre. So it's sort of fascinating.
All right, now you have my interest peaked.
Yeah, it's loosely, I think, based on a labor strike in Brazil to some extent. And the boss fights have like really, really cool animated cutscenes.
Yeah, I definitely would recommend it. Said I haven't gotten super far through it. That's the other thing is that they've been listening to people, they've been rebalancing things. They've actually added a bunch of different settings to let you fine tune how you play the game So making some things easier, being able to turn off the clock. So yeah, it's the devs seem to really care about this genre and also actually doing a good job of onboarding new people into it, which is really cool.
And the other game that we were going to talk about really quickly is I don't know, like set this one up, Grace.
So I recently talked about a game that was What If Stardew Valley but pirates, and it was delightful and cute and silly and great. And then I recently picked up this game that is What If Stardew Valley but everything is kind of miserable. And like,
Okay.
so the game is called Grimshire, and it is what it sounds like. It's a delightful little town full of cute little anthro NPCs. They're sweet and friendly, and you're gonna make friends with all of them. But also, the game starts with you being brought in unconscious because their town's trader was fleeing from the capital because essentially a zombie plague had broken out.
Oh my.
And so the premise of the game is that it's Stardew Valley. You have a farm, you fish, you mine, whatever, but you are doing it to keep this town of lovable idiots alive during during this crisis. So you have to grow enough food to support everyone, or people will start dying. You have to protect them from some of the events and things that happen, or people will start dying. And so it's like I spent a long time wondering who this game was made for, because it seems like a cute, cozy game, and most of the day to day of like the core loop is gonna go talk to the villagers, gonna go plant my seeds, right? It's the cozy game loop, cozy farming sim loop. But then you have this pressure hanging over your head the whole time of like, oh god, I need to catch more fish before tomorrow, or the carnivores in my town are going to starve. It's
It sounds like a less upfront depressing version of Frostpunk.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it definitely
Yeah.
seems like they mixed in some Frostpunk.
it's just it's just a very weird vibe, but also really extremely compelling because I like the core loop. Like the graphics are really cute, like the people are kind of delightful. Like there's little critters that you can farm and they're freaking adorable. And I'm compelled to keep these lovable idiots alive through all of the terrible shit that keeps happening to them. Um, so yeah, I was playing through on the normal, whatever the standard difficulty was, and I hit a quest that I didn't complete in time, and somebody died, and I was very mad. And so I started over, and I made it through, I think, most of the summer without anybody dying. And then they released a setting that's like super easy mode. So it was like normal mode, easy mode, and then like easy peasy mode, where it just reduces the amount of food that you need to stockpile for them. And I went through and started a new game on the easiest mode, and it lifted some of the pressure, but it's still there. And the quests especially require, like, you really have to balance your time, right? You need to mine a bunch of ore and make a bunch of stuff within a certain time period while also farming enough food to keep everybody alive. So it wasn't a cakewalk, but it reduced the anxiety level enough that I could really get into it. And then I did actually beat what exists of the game right now, which is the first year, without any of my townsfolk dying. I was very proud of myself, and it's still technically early access, but that first year feels like a pretty complete story. And I didn't really run into any major bugs or anything, so I would weirdly recommend this. I guess the answer to my question of who this game is for is I guess it is for me, but it's a weird vibe.
So originally we had a GenCon is coming topic a couple of shows ago, and then we didn't record last week, and now we have a GenCon has happened topic. So yeah,
GenCon has happened. I am back. It's still the best 4 days in gaming. Got to do a lot of stuff. Once again, massive convention, over 70,000 people. The space is only expanding. There's like 2 more hotels being built in there, so it's probably still going to grow. Take over the whole Lucas Oil Stadium, as well as the entire ICC Indianapolis Convention Center and all surrounding hotels. I did a lot of LARPing, a lot of TTRPGs, and then a couple of other things that I'll talk about. The first LARP I did was really interesting because it was one of those games that successfully pulled off the not exactly what it appears on the tin. And I'm always fascinated by this because I always want to figure out how you can pull this off, because when it works, it's super effective and super interesting and lasts with you forever. So in this game, the premise was basically set up that we were a bunch of different fantasy tribes coming together to deal with a problem. My character that I was playing was Cerberus of the Stream. I was of the Stream tribe. The Stream tribe was the group that was able to navigate the waterways. And I actually was particular. I had an ability to navigate through a passage called the Howling Caves, which when I navigated would take me anywhere in the world. I could use the Howling Caves to get anywhere in the world.
Handy.
Very handy, because there was a whole bunch of different scenes for this LARP, and people needed to like quickly be able to travel across there. And going through normal streams, like stream dwellers could go through the stream, but anyone else, they would like really quickly die from exposure to the stream. So you had to be of the stream to have that ability.
You're a navigator.
Yeah, I was a navigator. There were others. There were like one tribe was the magical tribe. They were all like one of their features is they were all albino. They had no pigment to them. They had red eyes, but they could do certain magic. There were there were all of these beasts, these large beasts that also existed in this world. And there were some of us that were able to like a tribe that was able to like tame them. Anyways, the story went that this was a land ruled by giants. The giants are all gone. One of the characters was the doomsayer of the stream. They had foreseen a vision, and they had a magic mirror that would allow them to like get magical answers to questions that they posed. And they had a vision that all of us were going to die very soon. And they brought us to a glyph that one of us was able to like piece together that it was a number counting down. And we got the feeling that when it got to 0, we would all die. So we had to solve this problem. And we're going through and we're using all of this information. We're like, we eventually found like the tomb of the giants. And all of the giants were in these like massive, like 100-foot tall sarcophagi. And we managed to wake up a giant, which one of us knew somehow. One of the characters knew a giant and was like familiar with a giant. And they managed to somehow get the giant to the device. And at the end of it, the giant interacts with this like counting down thing. And suddenly it is revealed that we are on a generational colony ship. The giants are humans. We are all bioengineered, uplifted, nanobot-infused rats. And this entire world that we've been playing in is just a generational colony ship.
Oh, that's clever.
And like, I was able to navigate the Howling Caves, which is the ship's pneumatic tube system. Like, the other rats of the stream would just like go through the pipes. So yes, like, it was never explicitly stated that we were human or not. Like, nothing was ever like said like what we were. We just all assumed we were human, and we took at face value that like this is this fantasy setting. All of the magic we did was just the way our nanobots interfaced with the human technology. It was very clever, and it was a very fun setting, and it like the reveal let you like look back on the entire time you spent with it and be like, oh, that's what was going on. How interesting.
That is really cool.
Yeah. It was very funny because like one of the things that was baffling me was like the giant that we were interacting with had a pouch. And I was like, oh, is the giant like some kangaroo? No, the giant is a little girl and she has a hoodie on. So yes, all of the rats would climb up into her pouch and she would carry us like very quickly throughout the world. And like mountains would move aside, like impassable barriers, doors would just slide aside and in her wake. So yeah, that was the first game that set a very high bar. After that, I did a True Dungeon run, which True Dungeon is a game in which there is like massive dungeons set up for you to kind of wander through, solve physical puzzles, and battle monsters using shuffleboard. I have been playing this for almost as long as True Dungeon has been at GenCon, has been a thing. And as a result, our crew has amassed quite a bit of like rewards. And so we were starting to do harder and harder difficulties. And it was definitely fun pushing ourselves to a harder difficulty this year. The puzzles were interesting. I feel like they have not quite reached the heights that they used to have with their puzzle design. But it's definitely still something I find fun and something I find interesting. I did there was one where the last LARP I did that night was Egyptian themed. It was ancient Egyptian. The idea was like it was sort of horror based. We were we were dealing with like the rights of the dead for a pharaoh. I didn't actually have a character. I was just a guard, so I gave myself the character of guard who wants to get ahead in this world. And so I just I had a really good time just like being there and making myself available for other characters to like use as like I am trying to earn your favor. Tell me what you need me to do. And then I went and like did tasks for people. And it was a lot of fun. People took me very seriously because I had a weapon and nobody wanted to mess with the person who had a weapon. The other TTRPG I had a really good time with was De Jura. De Jura is a anthro role-playing game that's very focused on like you are an anthropomorphic creature and the size of your creature is relatively equivalent to the size it is in our world. So in the game mechanic scale, the size categories go from size 10 to size 0. And there are certain roles where, depending on the difference in size, you have an advantage or disadvantage on that check. So if I am a size 1 character trying to prowl and evade notice of a size 7 character, I basically get 6 additional dice on my dice pool roll. And given that most dice pool rolls max out at around 4, that's a huge advantage. And this game was very interesting because it was a heist game, and I was playing a mouse thief, which is the smallest they had available, a size 1 character. And we had a whole bunch of other characters who were kind of like rounding out our Oceans, well, 4 in this case, group of cast of characters. We had a like spy, James Bond agent character. We had a tinkerer character, and we had I think like an another type of infiltrator character. My character, everyone else was like very like going through the normal way, and I was playing this game as if I was playing Thief the Dark Project. Like, the first thing they did was like, okay, what do you want to do to prep for this job? I got to make some rolls, like I got to make streetwise rolls, which I was good at, to find out what are the types of guards at this party. And I found out that there were dogs at this party. And this is where I was looking at my character sheet and realizing that each species has different advantages and weaknesses. And so I was like, okay, can I make a roll to figure out what's a dog's weakness? And so I was able to do that, and I found out dogs were like weak to loud noises. Loud noises would startle them. So I like, as part of the prep, I was able to be like, can I buy noisemakers? Can I like buy like tiny little like Snapdragon style like noisemakers that you throw on the ground and make a loud noise? And the GM was absolutely willing to let me do that. And so it was like, oh, this feels cool because like now I have used this information about the type of enemies I'm going to be encountering, and like they all have weaknesses. As we approached the manor, there was, sure enough, dogs at the door, like checking all of the people coming in, like smelling them, making sure they had their scent, and looking for like any hidden weapons. The rest of my party just like walked in. I was like, there is no way I'm going to let a dog get my scent. So I rolled out the side of the carriage and snuck around the side. And so this was like, we were already splitting the party. I managed to roll stealth because I'm a very small, very stealthy mouse. And I was able to get to the side of the house, at which point I had the ability, incisors. Mouse's incisors is able to gnaw through 3 centimeters of material per round. So I was able to create a little mouse hole. And then immediately I fell into one of my weaknesses, which is I had gnawed my way into a kitchen and I smelled delicious food, and I had to make a will save basically against smelling food, and I failed. And so I had to like stop my whatever I was doing for that scene and go find that delicious food and eat it. As like this like sequence of events felt very iconic for what you're trying to get out of this type of like anthro RPG experience. Like, we eventually managed to get all the way down and recover the asset just in time. It was quite a journey. There was a lot of interesting nuances to like, it was neat to see how like the manor had been laid out and there were specific areas you needed to do specific things to get like to specific places. It felt much more tactile than some of the other skill-based challenges I've experienced like at other conventions. This one felt really interesting to me. I really appreciated, there was a femme fatale who was going around and had actually stolen a whole bunch of money from our group, and I had kind of tunnel visioned on trying to steal that money back from her. But our James Bond agent had managed to like trick her into like beguiling her. And so in the end, she had purchased a thing that we wanted from the auction, and was like trying to get him to go away with her. But this person was extremely gay and ended it by poisoning her with a like knockout glove and saying, "I'm sorry, but I prefer the company of men." And that was just a wonderful ending to the game. But yeah, De Jura, very interesting. Still in development, but it definitely seems like it's got a lot of promise to it. The other LARP that is definitely worth talking about was when I got to experience some of my own childhood trauma dredged up. The game was called Trailer Park Blues, and I was playing as a 16-year-old kid in Alabama who was really into playing Dungeons and Dragons with his friends, and everyone was convinced that it was 1986, and everyone was convinced that we were communing with Satan, and like all of the evil, weird things happening in the town were our fault. And
it hits a little close to home.
It hit really close to home. And in the end, what you find out is like every single adult who is like trying so hard to blame the kids are actually the cultists responsible for all of the evil stuff going on, but they can't accept their own like evil, and so they have to project it all on the kids. Every terrible thing they're doing, they project onto the kids, and they convince everyone else that it's the kids' fault. And boy, did that not just feel very on the nose to me. And then the last thing that I did, probably more than anything else this Gen Con, was I played a lot of Starfinder 2. Starfinder 2 officially launched on the first day of Gen Con, and there was a whole bunch of Starfinder Society games going on. I rolled myself up a Patra envoy, which is the catfolk envoy, like the charismatic character, and I'm a space pirate. My character introduction is, despite anything you've heard about me, the one thing you need to know is I have a full pardon. Because my character's background was they're a privateer for the Resistance. And anything they did before they were a privateer is officially pardoned because they were a privateer. Because in the lore, there's like the Vescarium is this big, like, imperial planet-spanning force of the like evil, like the lizard folk faction, and they had controlled the cat folks' home world of Polonus for centuries. And very recently, the resistance managed to pry Polonus out of their grip and defeat them. So that's the backstory I've been going with. I had a really good time playing this game, playing the envoy. Like, really, like, every time I reread an ability, I thought of like, oh, there is so many more uses for this than I thought. Like, there are, and like as I was digging through the equipment, I was like, oh, there's a bunch of, like, every single character I was looking at had a bunch of interesting options to use their 3 actions for. Not just like, it did not have to be incredibly samey. Like, I did not have a bunch of the exact same turns, which was very fun. I have been very much enjoying, like, I even like the thing that I thought was going to be absolutely 100% a must-have feat for the envoy, I'm kind of like iffy on now, because there are just like, looking at other stuff available to it, I'm like, oh, there's so many good things here. The choices are really interesting for this game. And
was this the envoy thing we were talking about last week?
Yeah, and I ultimately, I think it matters more in certain games where like you're able to do a little bit more legwork, but especially in Starfinder games, I think it's less important. Also because I think there are other better directives than just using get 'em. It does kind of depend on which type of envoy you play. But the other thing that I was like going into this feeling was, man, I thought there was one class that was going to sort of overshadow every other class, which was going to be the operative, because the operative has expert weapon proficiency, kind of like the fighter does. And honestly, I feel like I'm also reconsidering that, because while I think the operative is like the best character at dealing with one target, everyone else is good in other interesting ways as well. But I played 3 different games of this. I had an absolute blast playing every single moment of Starfinder.
Yeah, it looks really good. It looks like they've really added. I feel like they're really dialing in the like bones of the system and starting to be more willing to do interesting things with it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they're also gonna go slow with Starship Combat, because they want to make sure they have it right before they release it.
Yeah, they had a really good. There's so few games that have like good Starship combat.
So I know that they are working on what they're calling cinematic Starship Combat first, which is probably going to be a lot less tactical before they figure out how they want to add a more crunchy Starship Combat, if they want to add a crunchy Starship Combat. But it was fun, and I got to play with a lot of people playing the Iconics, and it's very interesting, like, being at a convention and playing with a bunch of people playing, like, the iconic characters and getting to see everyone's different take on these characters that do have at least, like, some characterization explained to everyone. A lot of people gravitate towards Day because he has the biggest personality. And Day is the Patra or catfolk Solarian. And Solarian in this case is definitely not a Jedi, but kind of a Jedi.
Yeah, Starfinder really hits a kind of broad spread of kinds of space fantasy you might be into without it feeling like too much like an unfocused pastiche. And I feel like that's an impressive thing to pull off.
I mean, it's very interesting because it does have this like big central mystery of how the heck did we get here?
Yeah, well, and I think that works because it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but it's cool to have this mystery here.
Yeah, definitely agreed, and I think it does a really good. I think it does a better job of Pathfinder of pulling this off.
Yeah, I feel like Pathfinder does feel a little bit too much of a grab bag for anything for everybody.
Yeah.
I feel like Pathfinder feels less cohesive than Starfinder does.
I would agree.
Other than that, like, the vendor hall was still the vendor hall. I still got to see a whole bunch of stuff. I unfortunately had to hear a non-zero amount of times that projects I was interested in were getting shelved due to tariff concerns. So if you're into the tabletop hobby game, please support your local tabletop folks. It's a rough time for them. But yeah, another GenCon in the books. Had a really good time at it. Oh, there was one other thing that I do want to talk about. I got to do a LARP for Yazebas, which is how you pronounce it, because the game designer was there, and despite me having always calling it Yazebas, it's Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast.
I have been wondering that for so long.
And I played, and the idea for this was we were doing the beach episode. We've all packed into Sal's van and we're all driving to the beach. And I got to play as one of the Sals. They had a big stack of character sheets, and they basically flipped through them. And when you said stop, that was your character. I got Sal. And Sal is kind of he's the night porter. He is kind of a lazy slacker. He's more focused on his music, doesn't follow through on anything, but has a big part. one of the more main characters of this whole thing. And I went on probably the most epic Sal adventure you could imagine. And the way it worked is there were all of these tables set around the room, and they all had different beach activities at them. And part of the idea of Yazebas is there are whoopsies and what's the other term for it? Whoopsies and bingos. Your characters have whoopsies, which is like negative things they do, and bingos, which is positive things they do. And if you do a whoopsie, you get a meta currency that you can then spend to do a bingo. But there's also all of these activities that you have to spend your meta currency to like do something at. So you're sitting down at this table with a bunch of other characters who all have their own whoopsies and bingos, and you're role playing with each other, and you're like invoking your whoopsies and your bingos to like do various things as part of the role play. My whoopsies were failing to follow through, getting caught up in my own drama, making light of something important, faking confidence, and coasting on by. And so we were like, the game starts and we're all like interacting. I was at a table with a sentient slime monster, a like void monster, like, but they're all very kind void monsters. Well, the void monster likes to bite people, but we forgive them. And like we're having this like banter back and forth. And one of the characters, who is a man haunted by the ghost of his daughter, dug up a boat in a bottle. And when we uncorked the bottle, a boat came out, and that unlocked the sailing activity, which was a different table. So we all went sailing. We like all got up from the digging in the sand for treasures and moved on over to the let's go sailing. So we were the first people on the high seas, and the sailing was like, there was a whole bunch of note cards, like flipped over, and you would like sail and explore. And so we went sailing as our crew, and I was just sort of coasting along as Sal does. One of the things we encountered though was the Happy Kraken, and the Happy Kraken is like your boat is getting attacked by a kraken. But it's just trying to give your boat a hug. But our first mate did not understand that it was just trying to give us a hug. So our first mate, who was the horrible shadow monster, bit the Kraken on the tentacle. And the Kraken was very upset and came up and was like, why did you attack? Why did you bite me? It's like, we thought you were attacking. I just wanted to give you a hug. Oh, we're sorry. Anyways, it pushed us onto an island where we found an X. And so naturally, people see the X and they're like, well, we have to dig. There must be treasure under the X. And sure enough, there was a chest full of 3,000 silver spoons, of which I took one. And at this point, Sal, the musician, decided he was going to switch to writing sea shanties. And so I managed to write a couple of verses of a shanty based on this adventure. And I'll get to them. The wild thing is I managed to get back to shore eventually, and we encountered which was like, I went to the table, which was just like meeting random people. And there was a bunch of encounters with random NPCs, and the person who created the game was running them. And there was a mysterious man who was talking to one of the, like, I think talking to the vampire who had like lost her ability to bite people. This cast is a wild cast, but it's very fun and very like charming. Anyways, it turned out they were the Haverdasher who wanted to make us hats, but we had to give them something. And it seems like this person was not a haberdasher, the Haverdasher. They may have made us hats, but as soon as they had something of value for us, they dashed. So they ran off. They called us suckers, and everything collapsed around them. So it seemed like they were a scam artist. And I was just like, at this point, not sure what to do. It was a very random experience. I sat down at the place where you were making sandcastles, and I started making sandcastles and telling people about my story of the haberdasher, when the GM who was running this started like making some odd noises and told me that I saw a man who seemed to be wearing a t-shirt with a fine suit underneath, which is what the haberdasher was wearing. And so I had found the haberdasher trying to be a man buried in sand. And so I got my spoon back. And then we chased him back out onto the ocean. I found another boat that I dug up from the sand, and we all chased him around and managed to capture him once again. So that was the story of Sal.
Sal has big Greg Universe vibes.
Big Greg Universe vibes, yes. Anyways, I did in fact write a entire 3 stanzas of what would have been a 10 stanza shanty, because my character never follows through with something. But it was sailing on the deep blue sea, the hatches they were batten, when up from the briny deep arose a massive kraken. Our first mate was a fearsome beast, an amorphous mass of darkness. It leapt upon the kraken's arm and proved its teeth's sharpness. And so we managed to find, the game ended with another Sal, because apparently there were multiple of all of the characters running around, coming and doing a duet with me of this sea shanty. And so we had a really good time.
That's funny.
Yazeba's is fun. Like,
I really like the box. I have the physical box of it, and it's just unbelievably charming.
It's very charming. You definitely have to have people who are like, I feel like the base box, you need people who are willing to put in more than what is present in the box. I felt like this was better at being a big thing that could be sustained, but it required like 7 GMs.
Yeah.
I also think that while they're definitely trying to do the GM-less thing, I also think Yazeba's could be better with an actual GM.
I agree.
Because I do think you need to like be doling out the moments of tension like somehow. And like
you need to be able to set pacing.
Yes, setting pacing. That's exactly the right thing.
You need a Sam Reich. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of improv.
So yeah, that was GenCon. Really fun.
So this next topic is going to be a bit of a ride. I've never really understood what the appeal of esports was, and that's been just a thing that I assumed was not something I would really ever enjoy. I have come to learn I just did not sufficiently care enough about any of the games that were esporting for me to ever be into them. Because slowly, bit by bit, I have gotten more into watching Path of Exile in addition to playing Path of Exile. It started off with like, if for whatever reason, I would have to get a late start in a league, I might watch some of my favorite streamers as they do their league start. And then I started watching some of the race events. And then I watched like parts of the Badger Private League. And most recently, I watched the Gauntlet. And that was terribly interesting. Because the Gauntlet is this wild event where Path of Exile is on like uber hard mode. And every time it runs, it just keeps getting harder. And it was interesting to watch people, trying to tackle these new things that they're just now seeing while building a character, and also trying to keep up with other people running the event. So I guess I finally grok esports as a concept, and it's just mostly been that there's not been games that I cared enough about to like really get into it. Because like I tried to watch some League, I tried to watch some other stuff, but I just don't feel like I really liked those games enough to care.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I think this is why I liked League, is because I was at least good enough to try and understand what the higher tiered players were doing.
Yeah, and I can see that, because like I don't feel like I ever really understood League enough to even know what was happening, whereas like I've played a lot of Path of Exile at this point, so like I kind of understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. I think the event is still technically going on, but Ben has officially won his 7th Gauntlet in a row. And that was after losing a character to Searing Exarch and running up a whole new character to compete in the event. Basically, they learned the lesson that mercenaries can cause the ball phase in Searing Exarch to shotgun and take like 3 or 4 balls at once. Because the collision box of the mercenary counts. I also participated in the Gauntlet a little bit because there is an MTX this time around, and if you get off the beach, you get the glove MTX that looks like the artwork for the Gauntlet this time around. And then if you get to at least level 5, whenever you do die, your MTX will have forever emblazoned upon it the level that you managed to get to in the Gauntlet event. But I should have done the thing that a friend of mine did and got off the beach, got my MTX, killed my character, and moved on with my life. I did not do that thing. I actually attempted the Gauntlet and did better than I thought. I basically reached a point at the end of Act 2 where I could have exited back to character select and given it another shot. Like I knew I was going to die well ahead of when I died. But at that point, I was, 8 hours into the event and tired of playing a hardcore character. So I did allow myself just to take a death and be over. So the big change this time is, so like a lot of the encounters have new mechanics. So for example, Hillock on the beach is witnessed by Maven, and all the crap that Maven can do to you during a fight happens during the Hillock beach fight.
Oh.
Hailrick spawns 2 Hailricks.
Oh.
Brutus is, you first fight a fake Brutus, and then when you go into the safe room that's immediately after fighting Brutus, you fight the real Brutus and are having to deal with the water cannons off of the Hydra Guardian fight that are lining all 4 walls. So you're basically having to dodge globs of frostball kind of thing coming out from the water cannons. But like those are all things that I had dealt with before during Sir Gog's running of a softcore Gauntlet. But the thing that was new this time is when you went to fight Merveil, you had to fight every unique mob from Act 1 in a Gauntlet. So Merveil was basically in a bubble and could not be attacked. And you started off with fighting Hillock again, and then fighting the Fury from the beach. And then, so basically every zone that has a unique mob, you had to fight the unique mobs, and they were released in a timer, kind of like Maven's invitations are, where, you know, like you have so much time to kill one before the next one gets released. So like that definitely made Merveil's fight significantly more interesting, because not only do you have to like fight a harder version of Merveil, but you have to fight every unique mob a lot of times that people were skipping.
Yeah.
Before you could fight Merveil. And the same thing was true at the end of Act 2. So you know, like I died to Val Omnisoul after having beat all of the uniques, including the God, I don't know what to call them, the bandits. but the
Oh.
bandits aren't the bandits. So, like, Oak is called definitely Oak, and it's like this giant ogre-looking thing. And while you're fighting Oak, you have to deal with the whirlwind from whatever guardian that is. I'm drawing a blank. Veritania, the frost wall whirlwind thing that like goes around the room, and you had to fight Oak in the middle of that. Basically, all of the bandits had some stupid mechanic that you had to deal with. Anyway, it was an interesting time. I got my gauntlet. I don't want to actually try and make progress in it, but like they were also using the Frisia alternate ascendancies, but that just meant that basically everyone was playing Ancestral Commander because Ancestral Commander has a built-in Defiance of Destiny and also like a built-in Cloak of Flame into that ascendancy. So for defensive reasons, like it was the best ascendancy to play in a hardcore event. I think it was like something like 70% of everyone playing was playing on the Ancestral Commander.
What is the Ancestral Commander?
It is basically an alternate version of the Juggernaut. So the Frisia event released 19 new ascendancies.
Got it.
And none of the normal ascendancies were there. So like this gauntlet was run using these weird alternate versions of ascendancies.
And what made this ascendancy so popular?
It had basically one of the nodes was literally Defiance of Destiny. So 15% of damage is recouped. 15% of damage taken is recouped before you take the damage.
Got it.
And also it had 50% of physical damage taken as fire.
Aha.
So it basically just had like two extremely powerful defensive nodes.
Got it. Yep.
Since the the topics got shuffled when I wasn't looking, we're rolling into another one of my topics, which is it is wild trying to catch up on wargaming. The product offerings in the world are so much larger than they used to be.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like I last played with any seriousness during Warhammer 2nd edition. And at that point, okay, so example, paint ranges. Back then, you basically had GW, you had Ralpartha, you had Apple Barrel from Hobby Lobby, and you had Tester's Enamel that you could get at Walmart. Those were your options for painting back then.
Oh no, it's there's all kinds of things.
Like there are so many different ranges, and no one can agree which is the good range and which is the bad range. So I've not started painting anything because I haven't decided what I'm even going to invest in. So I've got a friend in town, and we've already decided that we're gonna have a paint weekend, and I will play with the smattering of various sets that he has, so I can decide which one I like. But they're like, it's just the options are outrageous of what's available now versus what used to be available now. And even in the mini ranges.
I was about to say, I just got back from GenCon, and I can tell you, if you really want, you can get like a 2-foot tall sculpt of Titus stomping on a Tyrannid.
Yeah. It's just like back when I last played, there were very few plastic sets, and most everything was metal.
Mm-hmm.
And now everything is plastic and has a bajillion like sculpt options, and it's just wild. I am trying to speed run the last several decades worth of wargaming to at least get an understanding of where things are right now.
It is also funny because they're like, what I also got to hang out with some of the folks that are still making pewter minis. Iron Winds, apparently.
Oh yeah, boy, they are a classic.
Is Reaper not doing that anymore?
Oh no.
No, I think Reaper's also on the plastic minis now.
That's wild. Because, like, even when everyone else was shifting to plastic, they were still doing a lot of metal minis. And my complaint with them back in the day is that they wouldn't do slot bases, that everything had some pre-built base on them already. And I've also started to go down the rabbit hole of 3D printing options, and my mini factory right now is running a summer sale, so I picked up some Space Wolf adjacent stuff on there that I will con my friend into printing, and at some point I will probably end up getting a printer myself. I can already foresee that. It's just wild how much bigger that world is than it used to be.
It's so impressive.
And also, like, I did not realize that Tulsa has a GW store now, which is wild to me, because, like, that was always like this fabled thing that didn't exist anywhere near me.
We live in the future.
I know. It's so weird. It's so weird. Just how mainstream this is now.
Yeah.
The level of, like, incredibly niche stuff you can get is also really impressive.
Yeah, like I was watching a video for product from Goblin Hobbies that is like a stamp set.
Oh, I've seen that.
Where it's like it's these metal die cards, and you basically use nail polish to embed the ink into the design you want to put on your mini, and then you use a card to scrape off the excess, and then you use a silicone stamp to transfer the ink from the metal die onto this clear silicone stamp that you can see through, so that you can place like insignias and unit markings and things like that on your minis that look nice and crisp and perfect without having to do transfers.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
This is freaking so awesome. Cool.
I've looked at this on more than one occasion. Like, do I need this? I don't know if I need this, but it's not just like insignias. They've got like patterns. So say you want to do a checkerboard on like an area of a miniature, you can, do transfer a checkerboard. If you want to make the really cool caution tape chain swords for your Marines without having to paint a bunch of individual lines, you can transfer a caution pattern over to the chain sword. It's just wild. Like, it's not the direction I thought that this would have gone. Like, I could have seen stenciling being a thing, and somebody probably already makes that for airbrushing. Yeah, there's people who do that.
But like, yeah, like this really cool stamp system. And in theory, like they say it's a special kind of nail polish, but like really it looked like it was just good nail polish. Like, the OPI stuff, the expensive nail polish.
One of my favorite things that I've seen that I think has really catapulted everything forward in a big way has been minis companies have done a whole lot of work to be more welcoming to a wider audience than they used to be. And so you end up with like a whole bunch of, the obvious one is there's way more women in the hobby now than there used to be. And it turns out that makeup kits are unbelievably good for minis painting.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so like there's like almost every like really good painter I follow. Like one of the best painters that I follow is oh god, what is her name? I've completely blanked on it all of a sudden. Just totally unhelpful.
Yeah,
but she's constantly talking about, it's like Renegade Hobbies or something.
Rogue Hobbies?
Rogue Hobbies, yes. But and I forget her name, but
it's like Elise or something like that, or
I don't remember. But
yeah,
she's a super good painter, and like is always talking about using interesting tools. I saw somebody who was using like an eyelash brush to do really, really precise stripes and just really, really creative things. My other favorite was somebody in South America was like, oh, if you spray the inside of a corn husk that you've boiled, because of course you've got corn husks that you've boiled.
Well, yeah.
But if you're making tamales all the time, of course you do.
Yeah.
It gives you a really, really nice like crinkle texture, and you can do just unbelievably good chipping with. They said it's better than a sponge. Like, oh, that's wild. Just like there's so much more variety and creativity in like what people are doing.
Well, all the tutorials that are like, use sponge instead of dry brush, and it's a makeup blender. Like, it's a commodity makeup blender that you get in a large bag of them. And all the folks that are using makeup brushes for dry brushing or for wet brushing or whatever you call it, where you have a damp brush but you're doing dry brushing.
Yeah.
It's wild. Luis,
yes, that's
yeah.
right. Louise Sugden. Yeah, she's just incredibly good, and I love her tutorials.
But like, even if you don't have the dexterity to do a brush, they are now massively expanding the range of paint markers with the same paint in it. Yeah, like, so there's like Army Painter is releasing basically all their speed paints in marker form, and also like their normal paints in marker form, so that you can lay down the base coat with the speed paint, but then come back and with what is effectively the grown-up version of a 80s era paint pen and do highlights and things like that.
Yeah, it's I really enjoy there's a lot more like wanting to make the hobby accessible, and I think that's really cool. Like, it's definitely what cracked it open for me, and it's cool to see that sort of continuing and seeing all different people just coming up with neat ideas and trying to bring people into the hobby.
Well, and I think 3D printing has also like cracked open a lot of stuff because it allows people to rapid prototype new things.
Yeah.
Because it seems like almost every painting celebrity has some product line that they've come up with. It's just a thing that they started using and now decided, are going to sell it to the world.
Yeah. Just like, I really needed this really specific thing, so I came up with this really specific thing.
Like, I know Squidmar's thing is he's trying to come up with sprue nippers that are good, but also don't cost $60.
Yeah. Because, you can get really, like, the ones I use are very good, but also they cost $60.
Yeah. So, like, if he can come up with something that rivals God Hand, but are like $20-$30, that will be a boon to the community, I'm sure. But yeah, it's just been wild trying to catch up on what all has happened. Also, I've been diving into the world of one-page rules a bit.
What are one-page rules?
Basically attempting to boil down something like a Warhammer game to a single sheet, and that sheet has everything that you need to play your miniatures so that you don't have to deal with a lot of extraneous rules.
Yeah, it's like trying to cut down on the rules overhead and rules bloat into something really...
so you can just sit down and play.
I've never messed around with OPR stuff, but everything I've heard about them is the rules are actually very good, but sometimes you have to deal with the people who are very into those rules.
Yeah.
That's less good.
Okay, we got a few more minutes. I am going to shuffle the topics a little bit and hit on one that I also want to talk about. Fantastic Four movie was really freaking good.
Somehow.
I'm so happy. I haven't gotten to see it yet because I don't get to go see movies.
It's really...
But I really need to see this one in the theater. And Superman.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I kind of need to see Superman first.
I mean, basically from the moment that it was announced that Pedro Pascal was playing Reed Richards, it was like, physically he doesn't look a lot like how I picture Reed Richards, but
Oh, he's so
he's
good.
absolutely the right vibe for.
Well, what they nail is optimistic retrofuturism.
The aesthetic is unparalleled.
Like that is what they've nailed 100%.
Yeah.
Is this world where technology made things better, not made things worse.
Yeah. Like I want more of that kind of thing. I'm gonna tamp down my thirst for Pedro Pascal. I don't even think he's the biggest. I don't think he's the most awesome member of the cast, even, which is impressive. Like they do a really good job of making all of the Fantastic Four cool and interesting, which has also not been successful in the past.
Well, so they nailed Ben Graham, perfect, spot on. They made Johnny not an ass. So
that is a fine line to manage, because he does need to be that brash.
If they get it, they nail
guy,
it.
But
they absolutely nail it. It's super good movie. Sue Storm is amazing.
So to say, most importantly, Sue apparently gets to have a personality and do stuff, which again has not always been the case.
Sue is legitimately I walked out of that movie with I would watch the solo Sue Storm movie actually.
Oh, absolutely.
She's so cool in that movie. It was an incredible treatment. I was not expecting. I went in with very low expectations, and probably I only really went to see it because this week has been a company event, and so to round it out, we rented out a theater and watched it.
Oh, nice.
And I don't necessarily know if I would have seen it otherwise. I'm really glad I did. It's just fun.
Awesome.
They also nail I'm not going to say who the villain is, but they nail two villainous characters that are really hard to get right, and that have been failed pretty badly before too.
Yeah, I'm super interested to see where we go from here. I kind of assume where we're going, but we'll see. We'll see if it ends up being like I think it's going to be.
I mean, we know where they're going into Secret Wars, but I am real curious what they are actually going to do with Secret Wars. And
right, exactly. How close are they going to track to Battle World, essentially?
Yeah, they've established incursions as a thing, and we know Doom is going to be involved. But honestly, there are so many directions they could go with that, and I honestly hope they do something that is very different from either comic book Secret Wars.
And the thing is they've not really just adapted anything much out of whole cloth to this point. In most cases, they've kind of cherry-picked elements or one or two events that happen in the comics.
They tend to do a lot of mix and match. Yeah, you'll be watching, one of them be like, "Oh, this is like that," but then this is like that other event.
Right.
Here they're doing something completely different with it. So yeah.
Yeah, I also really like the Ironheart series. So, I mean, we've had some good Marvel stuff lately.
I do need to sit down and watch that as well.
It's also
I just, when I found out that the Hood was in it, he just exhausts me. They tried so hard in the comics for so long to make the Hood a thing, and it was so bad.
I mean,
but it sounds like maybe they did something interesting to him. So
they did make it a character that you can care about a little bit.
Okay, because in the comics, there was the initial mini-series that introduced the Hood that was actually pretty good because he was an interesting character with some depth. And then they decided that this was going to be our new big bad for everything connected to the Illuminati and all that crap. And oh God.
I mean, the Hood is a sympathetic villain in this series.
That's more interesting because yeah, he was in that initial mini-series and then very quickly ceased to be. Because really, he's just an idiot who found a cloak and some boots off of a demon.
Yeah, that's way more interesting than this. Anybody have any short topics we want to discuss before we wrap things up?
I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I picked up Tiny Bookshop, and it's pretty cute. You're running a little bookshop out of a kind of like trailer cart thing and taking it to various places in this, small seaside village, and trying to sell books to people and make recommendations and such. I've adopted a dog.
It's very interesting to me that we're going to be getting a Homestuck animated series.
Well, what? Oh, God.
The team who makes Hell of a Boss has announced they're working on Homestuck animated series.
I mean, that does seem like the right vibe. I wish them luck in creating something comprehensible.
Maybe now I'll finally get to experience Homestuck.
Yeah.
I finished up Overgrowth at the suggestion of Grace, and it is good. You should all read it.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I thought it was a good one.
I also finished up Space Oddity, and I liked it less than I liked the first book in the series, but it kind of stuck the landing, so...
Yeah, I felt like Space Opera was the better of the two, but...
So the problem that I
Space
had
Oddity
is...
had good moments.
Okay, both books have a lot of word salad going on.
Oh, yes.
And the challenge with that is the first book had a more clear call to action.
Yeah.
And that kept the word salading focused.
Yeah, because Space Oddity is basically, well, that happened, and now these characters, now what?
Exactly. There's a good third to half of the book of Decibel Jones milling around. And then stuff happens, and then it's okay. So yeah, it was worth a read, but it ended in a good place, but it was a rougher book than Space Opera.
I finished up the Scholomance trilogy yesterday, and I once again highly recommend. The last book pulled together a bunch of threads and recontextualized some things in a way that I thought was very, very well done.
I have acquired it all. I just haven't started it yet. There's one more book that I want to read before I dive into that, because the Irregular Witch series has a new book out, and I've not started it yet. But once I wrap the book that I'm on right now, I'm going to start that, and then I'm going to start the Scholomance series.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it beats out Nona as my favorite Magic School series at this point, but it's definitely up there and somewhat easier to follow what's going on.
Okay, well, that sounds like a show. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.